We're discussing the new bill C-11, which is a version of its predecessor C-10 that was introduced federally this past March. And joining me again is Michelle Simard and Kanisha Clarke. Kanisha, before commercial, we ran out of time. My apologies, but we'll pick it right back up. There have been discussions that some are suggesting that this is really about promoting online content, more Canadian content, just like we do with major network carriers like Rogers, like Bell, like TELUS, that kind of thing. What do you make of these claims that this kind of bill would force companies like Netflix to carry more Canadian content?
So I believe that their aim in modernization is to make sure that they can include how we're evolving in technology, which I think is a really good thing. However, if you're not quite understanding how these different platforms use their technology to better the user experience, to provide a platform where people can feel like they can speak freely, where they can make money. And there's a lot of different things, compensation models with these different various platforms. So a large number of those content creators sit there and they make content that maybe a certain audience wants to listen to. So as a user is listening to these different content creators, YouTube has like algorithms and sensors that predict certain behaviors, and they pick up similar or like content that you may be interested in. And this is very, very important. So if this is how people are starting to make money and they see an avenue for themselves, it's very difficult to say that there might not be any censorship there, or there might not be a cause for concern. Of course, there's going to be cause for concern. I feel strongly that this bill may actually have a lot of backlash from content creators where they are generating income and profits from what they're doing. So I do believe that there's one set to look at how those companies that you're regulating, and then two, the user experience those content creators are being impacted. And then even three, is it healthy for competition? So I definitely see why there would be cause for concern and why people might believe that it is censorship and maybe even causing freedom of speech to be kind of
right, to be eroded, basically.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so one of those clauses that was very controversial in terms of something being removed and then re-added was section 4.1. And Michelle, I'm going to ask this to you. You're a lawyer. You can digest this for me. In Bill C-10, it was removed, but in this new C-11, it is back. And you alluded to this in your first question when I threw that to you. So what happened? The government, you said they just basically smartened up and said, you know what, we've got to put this back in. There was too much backlash, or is there something else at play here?
Oh, I think the problem was that...
And maybe explain what 4.1 was.
Yeah, so, okay, so like everything in life, right? Like you come up with an idea and you're like, okay, you know what, I'm going to make this dinner tonight. And then, okay, that's great. But what are the ingredients, right? Like you need specifics. And I think that what happened was it was just too much gray. And so it was about broadcaster, you know, what is considered a broadcaster. And so putting this back in, it was about giving a little bit of a definition or like guideline of what would be constituted. So therefore, if you didn't qualify as a broadcaster or professional, then you wouldn't be mandated by this. Mm-hmm. And anyone else who wasn't mandated by this, you're considered amateur, right? It's kind of like when you think about the Olympics. People who go to the Olympics are considered to be amateurs. Once you're professional, then, you know, you don't go to the Olympics anymore because you're a professional. This is for amateurs to compete. And so at the end of the day, they were kind of giving this breakdown. But as Kanisha was explaining when she was talking about the algorithms and so forth is, okay, so great. Now you've made a little bit of revenue. Now you might get picked up by another, streaming service, or it could be a broadcasting service. Now, what happens there? And you might be making some money out of it. It could be peanuts, for God's sakes, but it still qualifies as some form of compensation, consideration, and whatever. That qualify you now as being a broadcaster. And I think this is what the issues are. They brought it back because they realized in some ways, so they cleaned up the language a bit to try to make it better. But I still don't think it's tight. It's not tight. Mm. I think that, and I get for legislation, it's very hard to get so nitty gritty and fine tooth it. But on this particular one, I think they needed to.
Okay, so this reinsertion of the clause, so essentially the CRTC will be the ones determining who's a broadcaster, or is it the government agency? It would be the CRTC, I assume.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So
and who they can't regulate, and they have a certain system. But again, let's go let's pull a layer back here, and let's think about. So great. So it's a CRTC. Who in the CRTC is doing it? Is this a low-level employee? Is it a mid-level employee? Is it a high-level employee?
Is it even a committee? Is it a delegation? We don't know.